And at number 10, Riddler. Believe it or not, Batman has actually admitted that the Riddler is more intelligent than he is. Obviously, he is incredibly insane, but the Riddler has even realized this himself, which only expanded his intelligence. In terms of street-level villains, few can stand up to the intelligence of Riddler. Just like Batman himself, Riddler always has backup plans for his backup plans. He plays for most outcomes, but he usually sets traps and plans that are so well thought out that he doesn't always need his backup plans. And then, obviously, there's all the wordplay that he includes in his riddles that has even the most astute of readers rubbing their chins just trying to figure it out, you know? Number 9, Vandal Savage. When you think of intelligence, you don't often think of cavemen, but there is one caveman who can proudly make this list. Vandal Savage was alive 50,000 years ago as chief of a tribe of other cavemen, but when he came into contact with a strange meteorite, it exploded and bathed him in this strange alien radiation that gave him immunity to aging, disease, and fatigue, meaning he's effectively immortal. The meteorite also increased his intelligence to superhuman levels, which combined with 50,000 years of learning, experiencing, and living alongside every single technological innovation in the history of man, Vandal Savage possesses skills in almost all areas, even basically becoming immune to pain. But he specifically focuses on the tactical skills that would help him become a world conqueror. He never became. Number 8, Eobard Thawne. Eobard Thawne was a brilliant scientist born in the 25th century and genetically altered to already be smarter than most with an IQ of 167, which automatically gives him a technological understanding that exceeds almost everyone from the modern era. But he was able to create his own negative speed force that has the ability to shut off other speedsters' connection to the regular speed force. His negative speed force also gave him the ability to digest information at an incredibly fast rate, and that, coupled with his already high intelligence, makes him extremely capable with his mind, even being able to figure out insane ways of manipulating time to his advantage. Now, he isn't the greatest fighter, but with his speed and his mind, he doesn't need to be. Number 7, Dr. Sivana. Sivana is a scientific genius, mastering almost all of the scientific disciplines that exist on Earth, making him one of the leading minds on Earth. He is one of the cookie cutters that people think of when talking about mad scientists. He is also the arch enemy of Shazam and the Captain Marvel family, and because of this, and his genius, he has elevated himself beyond just being a scientific genius, studying the occult, and being able to teach himself how to harness magic, specifically after he joined forces with Mr. Mind and when he reawakened Black Adam, which is when his right eye became capable of seeing magical energies. Number 6, Professor Ivo. Professor Ivo is a genius, specifically specializing in cybernetics. He has built Amazo, Amazoid, Composite Superman, and Kid Amazo, and he was also the partner of T.O. Morrow in building Red Volcano. He also built the body of Tomorrow Woman, but he was also able to figure out how to give himself immortality even if the formula that granted him this ability was flawed and left him pretty rough looking. Number 5, Batman Who Laughs. Look, I'm sorry that this guy makes almost every single DC villain related list, but it's not my fault. DC took a version of Batman, a level 9 intelligence with an IQ of 192 and an unbelievable amount of skill, and turned him into a villain, and that almost automatically puts the Batman Who Laughs in the top tier of threats. But then they also Jokerized him, and it made the character capable of almost destroying the entire multiverse with the powers of Dr. Manhattan. Just like Lex Luthor, Bruce Wayne is just a normal guy, so to elevate himself to the level of a multiversal god who defeats almost any threat posed against him, the intelligence, cunning, and skill he would have to possess this is just beyond anything else we have ever seen. Just like Batman, the Batman Who Laughs is a planner who lets almost nothing get in his way. I wouldn't be surprised if he finds a way to return to the DC universe very soon. Number 4, Darkseid. The most intelligent of the new gods with the exception of Metron, Uxas is the genius ruler of Apocalypse who has developed advanced technologies, conquered countless worlds, gained the anti-life equation, and developed the Soulfire formula for defeating the Source. He is one of the ultimate enemies of the universe, and while that is largely due to the amount of sheer power he has, it's backed up by an incredible level of otherworldly intelligence and an insane amount of experience. He's a master tactician that is able to pretty much outthink almost all of the universe's superheroes, and his presence is always a massive cause for concern that always requires a group effort to overcome. some. Number 3. Ozymandias. The Watchmen comics, which are integrated with DC but always feel slightly separate, have this knack for being rather realistic in terms of comic books, which is why their version of the smartest man on Earth is actually quite terrifying. Ozymandias is wildly intelligent, but because of Watchmen's realism, he doesn't often make the same stupid, ego-fueled mistakes that other villains, like Lex Luthor, do. Also, more often than not, the heroes kind of find themselves a little conflicted when facing him. That's because he is genuinely trying to help everyone except for the millions or billions of people who would perish for his goals to become reality. Ozymandias is also possibly responsible for pulling strings throughout the multiverse in order to enact his own wills. I feel like since he's more involved with the Watchmen, he kinda gets overlooked, but he is almost always given the title of smartest man on Earth, and it's not for no reason. Number 2. Lex Luthor. Luthor achieved his place as Earth's greatest criminal in the mainstream DC universe thanks to his super intellect, eidetic memory, and gift for strategy. He's also one of the only villains who has repeatedly rallied together the other supervillains, which someone on the internet described as trying to herd a group of cats, and Lex was able to do it. There isn't a facet of science Luthor hasn't mastered to extend his goals or enhance his business empire, including space, time, and extra-dimensional travel, biochemistry, robotics, and synthetics. Luthor isn't just considered the most intelligent human, but one of the most brilliant beings in the multiverse. I find Lex and Oz to be fairly equal, but obviously Lex has many more examples that show off his vast intelligence, and that just puts him a cut above at number 2. But at number 1, it's Brainiac. There is no being in the universe that can stand up to the intellectual power of Brainiac, and with that name, it would just be silly if anyone could. Using his biological supercomputer of a brain, Brainiac rules over planets that he has conquered and manipulates events from the shadows. He even has other separate versions of himself that could each take up a point on this list. His brain is so powerful that he often doesn't have to engage in actual combat at all. His obsession with learning and studying everything has led him across the cosmos, destroying anything that gets in his way, leading him to possess the combined knowledge of many thousands of worlds that he has assimilated and contained. He is, on paper, the smartest DC villain out there. Unfortunately for him, in practice, he's outsmarted by some relatively simple things, like, for example, the fact that germs exist. But despite that, there's absolutely no doubt that this 12th level intellectual being lives up to the name of Brainiac as one of the smartest villains in DC Comics. Coming in at number 10 today, it's Hulk Hogan. It's Hulkamania, brother! First appearing in Iron Man number 227 in his prime of October 1987, Hulk Hogan witnessed Iron Man defeating Beetle, who tried to steal a Picasso painting from a celebrity charity auction. This moment for Hogan really only lasted about 1 page, and all he did was go, "Body slam! Use a body slam!" And he didn't even say brother, so like that doesn't really count. But sometime later, in Marvel Comics Presents number 45 from March of 1990, Hogan Bogan takes on the Grey Hulk in his Mr. Fix-It persona when they wrestled for the rights to use the Hulk name. Hogan may just be a man, but he seems to be able to take a beating from Fix-It and even dish out a few hits of his own before Fix-It sends him and his amazing handlebar mustache flying out of the arena and landing miles and miles away into someone's living room. And that's one hell of a defeat, brother. Man, there was too much energy for that. I gotta slow down. Okay. And we're gonna become calm now. Here we go. Coming in at number 9 today is Maestro. The Incredible Hulk has certainly been through the ringer in his decorated career, but few versions of the character are the living embodiment of that fact like the Maestro is. An alternative version of Bruce Banner from an apocalyptic future, this version of the character is far more intense and complex than his Earth 616 counterpart. The best way to describe Maestro is to say that he is basically a smarter, older, villainous version of Dr. Bruce Banner, with all the powers and abilities of the original, but with a touch more nuclear radiation due to the conflict that created the dystopian wasteland he comes from. He has much more of a cosmic and spiritual side than the normal Hulk does, but he is also twice as strong as Hulk is, and he retains all the intelligence of Bruce Banner, but with years and years more experience and basically no morals. Despite all that extra strength, brain power, and experience though, he still gets outmaneuvered by the Hulk, who sends brings Maestro back in time to the site of the gamma bomb that created him. But even then, the Maestro's spirit remained on the bones left behind after the gamma explosion went off and he returned. This bearded green behemoth has been a fan favorite character since his introduction in the Future Imperfect storyline, and his backstory, fighting the Human Torch, Dr. Doom, Namor the Submariner, and Abomination, among others, is pretty intense and a really fun read. Number 8. Aborigine Hulk. Have you ever heard of the House of M? I would assume that you have. It's when Wanda Maximoff changed reality to make the mutant Magneto the ruler of the world with his family. Well, in this world, when Bruce Banner transformed into the Hulk after the Gamma explosion, it is believed by Mr. Ross that he is a spy of Magneto and he is hunted down like normal. But not like normal, he travels all the way to Australia and he settles in with a group of Aborigine where he becomes a part of their tribe and finds an inner peace with Banner and the other guy. But of course, the conflict between the mutants and the last remaining resisting humans finds its way to the outback and onto the territory of this Aborigine tribe. With a kind of control over the Hulk persona, Hulk and Banner help the humans halt their persecution by their mutant overlords, eventually helping AIM to rule Australia. There's this really cool moment where the Hulk is using a whale to cover a submarine, and it looks super amazing, and it's actually kinda smart. Number 7. The MCU Hulk. While the Hulk in the MCU, played wonderfully by Mark Ruffalo, is initially depicted as more impulsive and primal, as the MCU progresses, a more intelligent side of the Hulk emerges. The Hulk's intelligence evolves over time, ranging from childlike simplicity to a level of reasoning that eventually equals Banner's genius. In Avengers Age of Ultron, the Hulk displays a connection with Natasha Romanoff that showcases a depth of emotion and complexity, but he still retains his childlike intelligence. By Avengers Endgame, however, his intelligence is far more evident as the Hulk merges his bronze with Banner's brains, becoming a merged entity known as Smart Hulk. This version has Banner's intellect, the Hulk's physical might, and a more balanced emotional state, and it is essentially a version of the Hulk that is copied straight from Earth 616's own Incredible Hulk. This portrayal adds layers to the Hulk's character, demonstrating that his intelligence isn't just a result of Banner's consciousness, but an amalgamation of both personas. And it also allows Mark Ruffalo to be his awkward normal self, but green and big, which is always fun. Number 6. Amadeus Cho. Now, unlike almost every other Hulk here, Amadeus Cho is not from an alternate universe to the main 616 Incredible Bruce Banner Hulk. By 15, Amadeus Cho was the 7th smartest person on the planet, with a mind that functioned like a hypercomputer, but that also put a target on his back and led him to become friends with another genius, a guy you may know called Bruce Banner. Cho first popped up on the scene back in 2005, but it wasn't until 10 years later in 2015 when the Hulk got stuck with a dangerous amount of a new type of radiation that Amadeus took on a different form. Using special nanites, Amadeus absorbed the Hulk's powers, becoming a gamma-powered monster and the totally awesome Hulk. But unlike Bruce, Amadeus found himself having much more control over his Hulk persona, and prided himself on being a better and smarter Hulk. Unfortunately, over time that wouldn't completely last, especially when he exiled himself to find control and ended up on Sakaar. When he finally came back to Earth and declared war on his enemies, he had to be stopped by his allies, and in doing so, they injected him with nanites that countered the ones he himself had placed inside of himself. Amadeus didn't lose his Hulk powers, instead he retained just a portion of the power and his darker side, and now goes by the superhero name Brawn. Number 5. Old Man Hulk. Probably the most disturbing version of Hulk I've ever seen would have to be Pappy Banner in the Old Man Logan story by Mark Millar. After the villains took over the world, it is believed that Banner and the Hulk received extra doses of radiation from the atomic devices used in California, which caused Bruce to become just a little bit unhinged. Hulk procreated with Jennifer Walters, his first cousin, creating kids who also had children, and together they all formed the Hulk Gang that viciously rule over Hulkland, which is primarily the whole of the west coast of the USA. Running that kind of an operation takes some intelligence. Now, before you all tell me he didn't do this with Jennifer Walters, like last time I said that, here is the comic panel of him saying that. Okay, now that that's out of the way, this version of Bruce actually has the strength of the Hulk when still in his Bruce Banner form, which is really interesting and also shows that he is still intelligent while being super strong. But when angry enough, Bruce will transform into a massive, almost 30-foot tall Hulk, who still had the same intelligence and was able to eat Old Man Logan whole. before Logan regenerates and tears himself out from the inside, but he still manages to survive with his head being attached to a robotic body, which is also super cool. Number 4. She-Hulk. The lawyer Jennifer Walters is Bruce Banner's first cousin and probably the closest thing he has to a sibling. It just so happened that as Bruce was seeking some legal aid from Jennifer, she was nearly sent to the afterlife during an assassination attempt, and it's kinda crazy how much that seems to happen in comic books. Well, Bruce saved her life by giving her an emergency blood transfusion, but as a result, she became the She-Hulk. Although she started out as a bit of a savage She-Hulk, when she appeared in issue 1 of her comic in 1980, Jen's normal personality eventually became dominant when she was in her gamma-powered form, giving her access to her intelligence as an incredibly skilled and successful lawyer. In fact, she actually prefers being She-Hulk even in her day-to-day activities, and she puts her skills to use as an Avenger and member of the Fantastic Four. Number 3. Hulk 2099. This version of the Hulk, appearing in the awesome possible future of 2099, where Spider-Man 2099 makes his home, is a guy named John Eisenhart. He was a corporate lawyer for big movie studios who went to go and coerce a group called the Knights of Banner, who were a cult-like group of warriors who followed the ideologies of Bruce Banner. John was going to gain the rights for their name in order to make a movie about them, all while giving them nothing in return. He turns them into this corporation called Sweet Dreams, thinking they'll be brought in peacefully, but it doesn't really go that way. The only Knight of Banner who survives, a kid, goes to a gamma machine, but John saves the kid, pushing him out of the way and being blasted with gamma radiation. John can now turn into the Hulk whenever he wants, he has a super strong prehensile tongue, and he is much more beast-like with massive claws, but he is just as powerful as regular Hulk, but unlike the regular Savage Hulk, John retains his intelligence. That intelligence may not be Bruce Banner levels, but John is a skilled attorney, and that makes him more intelligent than the childlike Green Goliath that we are used to. Number 2. Tyrone Cash. Professor Leonard Williams, aka Tyrone Cash, was originally a brilliant British scientist working at Cambridge University. He was working on a version of the super soldier serum when Bruce Banner joined his team. Like Banner, Williams hated his own body, and like Banner, Williams had his own agenda for wanting to perfect the process. Once the serum was completed, Williams took it and went from Banner's mentor to his predecessor as the Hulk. He took out several people and escaped from the university and has been on the run ever since. He abandoned his old life, allowing everyone to believe he was actually deceased, using his incredible intellect to evade capture for like 16 years. Williams adopted the name Tyrone Cash and became a ruthless gangster, taking out and pillaging the property and wealth of gang leaders and criminals throughout Africa and Asia in the Ultimate Universe. And finally, in at number 1 today, it's Monk. Of all the alternate Hulks we've got here, none are quite like Monk. Monk comes from a little alternate universe story called 5 Ronin, which sees feudal Japanese versions of Wolverine, Punisher, Psylocke, Deadpool, and of course, the Hulk. What's interesting here is that none of these characters seem to have the superpowers that make them superheroes in the regular 616 universe. Or if they do, their powers are extremely subtle and low-key. And an excellent example of that is the Hulk/Monk. From reading Hulk's issue of the 5-issue story, we can gather that Monk used to be a ferocious samurai back in his day. Monk is a massive man, and he wielded a massive sword. But in his warrior rages, he would do some pretty unspeakable things, and because of the last one to happen, he swore himself off of the warrior life and instead decided to set his roots on the top of a mountain in a sort of sanctuary, just trying to find inner peace. Even when the nearby villagers came to the former samurai for help against some bandits, he refused until he was visited by a Ronin with a mouth who convinced him to use his rage one last time.
Number 10. Colleen Wing. Colleen Wing worked with Misty Knight as her partner at their private investigations office, Nightwing Restorations Limited. Both women proved to be skilled trackers, investigators, and martial artists during their cases where they mostly focused on missing persons. Iron Fist would also join up with them from time to time, but it was as a result of these two talented women working together and due to their incredible martial arts skills that they were given the name the Daughters of the Dragon. They would even go on to have their own comic series under that name in the early 2000s, which actually came back again for another limited run in 2018. Number 9. Misty Knight. Misty Knight was originally a police officer with the NYPD, graduating with honors from the police academy. She was a lieutenant when she lost her arm in an explosion. Tony Stark ended up building her a bionic arm, but she was still resigned to work a desk job due to her disability. This eventually drove Misty to leave the NYPD and form her own PI business with her friend Colleen Wing, which we previously discussed was called Nightwing Restorations. This wouldn't be all the investigative work Colleen and Misty would get up to though. They would also go on to work together as bail bondsmen, loaning those awaiting trial bail money but tracking them down if they refused to show up in court on their trial date. Number 8. Elongated Man. Elongated Man proved his mettle as a brilliant mind during the events of Identity Crisis. While he may have not necessarily had the right culprit in mind in regards to the murder of his wife Sue Dibney originally, he proved throughout the series with his investigative skills and deductive reasoning to be one of the greatest detective minds DC has. In fact, it was his early work as a detective in the first place that gained him recognition from the Justice League and helped him to earn his spot on the team. Number 7. Abe Sapien. Although there are many times in the Hellboy comics that Abe has been somewhat hesitant to face the outside world and intimidated by an impending sense of doom, which has seemed to haunt him since early on in his career as a BPRD field agent, he still often manages to press on, proving to be an invaluable investigator. In fact, there are many cases that likely would not have even been solved without his help, including the one later that would echo with a foreshadow of his death, the Cavendish Hall affair. After surviving the death that was foretold as a result of that investigation, he would be faced with one of the greatest mysteries of his life, his forgotten past and origins, which he would in turn manage to solve. Number 6. Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones wasn't always known as a capable PI. She originally was the costumed hero Jewel, but after a run-in with Purple Man, she decided to retire from the superhero life and put her skills to good searching for justice in another way by becoming a private detective. Although she returned to the hero life briefly as the vigilante Nitress before starting her own agency, her time as Nitress was basically just a little bump in the road. And honestly, thank goodness for that, because Jessica Jones as a detective is a much more compelling story in my opinion. And she's a pretty great investigator. It's thanks to the series Alias that we know Jessica as more of a PI than a direct superhero. That and her Netflix series helped to paint the picture of Jessica as a hardened hero who is somewhat lost, but equally determined to fight for the justice and protection of innocent people on her own terms. Number 5. Tony Chu. Anthony Chu comes to us from the Image comic series Chu. A lot of his brilliance actually comes from his weird psychopathic abilities, which allows him to know everything about whatever food or even non-food that he ingests. For plant-based food, he's able to gain knowledge of where it's from and any pesticides that were used on it. For meat, he can discern how it was killed. Chu originally worked for the Philadelphia Police Department, but went on to use his abilities in his job for the FDA, the US Food and Drug Administration. Chu solves all sorts of crazy crimes with his weird ability, and often gains the knowledge or abilities of those animals that he eats, and sometimes the corpses that he is forced to eat. He can even ingest thrown out food to gain knowledge of blueprints and layouts for the building that it actually came from. Number 4. Velma Dinkley. That's right, the famed brilliant Velma of Scooby-Doo. You might be thinking, but wait a minute, Scooby-Doo is a cartoon, not a comic, Amanda. But if you are, you might be surprised to find out that you're kind of wrong. Scooby-Doo is actually both a cartoon and a comic series. In fact, they have multiple comic series about the Scooby Gang. And guess who is making Scooby comics right now? DC, which means DC really does have an amazing wheelhouse of brilliant detectives on their hero roster, especially with Velma included. Velma is usually the brains behind all of the Scooby Gang's solved cases. She's usually the one who helps to piece all the clues together and solve the mystery. So while she can't do it without the rest of her friends and teammates, she definitely stands out as the brightest member of the team. Number 3. John Constantine. Well, John Constantine might not be the kind of detective you think of first when you think of the smartest, with him being, well, not as put together as some of the other detectives on this list. When it comes to manipulating people or demons, there is likely no one smarter than Constantine. John Constantine remains one of the trickiest characters around when it comes to talking demons into doing just what he wants, usually without them even realizing they are being fooled and falling right into Constantine's traps. He's basically the Odysseus of occult detectives. Many might fixate on his magical abilities, but his tongue is probably one of the most dangerous weapons that he wields. Hey, don't you go there. Number 2, Detective Chimp. Bobo T. Chimpanzee is Detective Chimp, one of the best detectives in the world, despite being a chimp. Detective Chimp is often dressed as Sherlock Holmes and made his first comic book appearance in Adventures of Rex the Wonder Dog, issue 4 in 1952. Why a chimp for one of the most brilliant minds? Well, this is likely because back in the day, covers and stories featuring apes sold really well, which is why we have so many capable ape and monkey characters in comics today. Detective Chimp has solved all sorts of challenging mysteries and was considered to be the best detective in the world by Dr. Fate. He is a highly intelligent chimpanzee who is capable of communicating with various species and whose intellect has been classified as greater than 98% of the Earth's human population. Wow. Number 1, Batman. We can't have a smartest detective list without including Batman on it, of course. Batman is the comic book detective. Despite just being a man in a bat suit, he has one of the most brilliant and most skilled minds on the planet. He is a master detective, and while Detective Chimp was ruled as the best detective by Dr. Fate and potentially the world of magic, I guess, it doesn't necessarily mean that Chimp is smarter than Batman, or even that Dr. Fate was right. After all, magic doesn't know everything. Even when you think Batman maybe isn't the greatest detective, he proves you wrong. Like in Batman R.I.P., when it seemed that he had fallen prey to the Black Glove's trap, he actually hadn't. The Black Glove thought that they had eliminated him, but he dug out of his own grave and returned to prove them wrong, revealing that actually they had fallen prey to his plot, as he had known about their plans and Jezebel Jet's true allegiance the entire time. What a twist. Even I was shocked.
Number 10, Ultron. When Hank Pym was experimenting with robotics, he developed Ultron, a highly intelligent and sentient robot. The robot brainwashed Pym into forgetting that he had created him and went on his merry way, brainwashing various scientists into helping him create new robot bodies for himself in his constant quest to improve himself. He also created the hero Vision, who he created in an attempt to kill the Avengers, but for some reason he imprinted Vision's neural network with the brain patterns of the hero Wonder Man, and then was surprised when Vision turned on him and joined the heroes. Ultron is clearly highly intelligent, but a lot of his plans involve brainwashing scientists into doing his bidding, so one could argue that a lot of his intelligence is just good delegation. Number 9, Kang the Conqueror. Nathaniel Richards is a man from the 30th century who may or may not be a descendant of Reed Richards' time-traveling father. Alternatively, he may also be a descendant of Doctor Doom. So either way, he's got them genius genes. He used his superior intellect to rebuild Doctor Doom's time machine and went back to ancient Egypt, where he set himself up as a pharaoh until he was dethroned by the Fantastic Four. He ended up in the 40th century, where he reinvented himself as Kang the Conqueror and came back to the 20th century with future technology that he hoped would allow him to take over the Earth and defeat his archenemies, the Avengers. He has extensive knowledge of the future and has a specialty in physics, as well as being an expert engineer and technician. Number 8, Dr. Octopus. Otto Octavius graduated from MIT with a specialty in radiation, leading him to be recruited by the US Atomic Research Center. Due to the hazardous materials he would have to be handling, Otto developed 4 mechanical arms, but a workplace accident involving unstable chemicals left him insane but capable of controlling the arms with his mind. Otto became one of Spider-Man's most consistent foes, using his genius to create nefarious inventions to make the webhead's life more difficult. Perhaps his most impressive invention was the brain-swapping Octobot that allowed Dr. Octopus to trade bodies with Peter Parker, making himself the new superior Spider-Man for a time. Number 7, Mr. Sinister. Nathaniel Essex was a 19th century professor who became obsessed with the theory of evolution presented by Charles Darwin. He managed to predict the rise of mutants and began to perform brilliant but cruel experiments on people in order to try and prove his theory. This caught the attention of the mutant Apocalypse, who transformed him into Mr. Sinister, granting him mutant powers. Sinister used his extraordinary mind to continuously improve himself by taking and incorporating the DNA of other mutants. He has mastered the art of cloning, and his work over the centuries has made him an expert in mutant DNA, something that has allowed him to become more powerful over the years. His genius has also helped him to manipulate the lives of Professor X, Gambit, Havoc, Cyclops, and Jean Grey. Number 6, MODOK. There is some variation of the origins of MODOK, but the common thread is that George Tarleton was a low-level employee of advanced idea mechanics, who was chosen to be the subject of an experiment with the aim of creating a way to effectively study the cosmic cube. They altered George, hoping to improve his intelligence, but the resulting experiment also caused his head to grow to a massive size, forcing him to be seated in a hover chair called the Doomsday Chair, as he could no longer support his head's weight. He became known as MODOK, with a C, mental organism designed only for computing. His increased intelligence also led to an increase in his ego and ambition, and he soon overthrew his superiors and took over AIM, swapping out the C in his name for a K, becoming MODOK, mental organism designed only for killing. MODOK uses his advanced intelligence and his psychic powers to take on the various heroes of the Marvel Universe. This resulted in him neglecting the scientific aspects of AIM, trying to get revenge on the heroes he's fought, which led to him being ousted by AIM. So though he is intelligent, he is less capable of using his massive brain to be an effective leader than many of the other villains on this list. Number 5. Thanos. Thanos was born on the planet Titan and had the deviant gene, which gave him thick purple skin as well as superior strength and heightened powers. He fell in love with a woman who turned out to be Death, and dedicated his life to impressing her by destroying as many living things as possible. Using his big smart brain, he came up with a plan to acquire the Infinity Gems and wipe out half of all life in the universe in order to impress his love. Unlike many other evildoers who claim to be geniuses and then fail, Thanos actually pulled this off, getting all of the gems and using the Infinity Gauntlet to enact his deadly romantic gesture. Number 4. The Leader. Samuel Stearns was a man of below average intelligence who was working at a chemical plant when one of the canisters of waste he was moving broke open and doused him in toxic waste. On the plus side, rather than giving him cancer, it gave him super intelligence. On the flip side, it also caused his head to grow to a massive size and for his skin to turn green. Stearns decided to dedicate himself to taking over the world and started calling himself the Leader. Stearns has used his intelligence to create brilliant machines and nefarious plots that he has used to try and take out his archenemy, the Hulk. His intelligence has varied over the years, with the effects of the toxic waste wearing off and forcing Stearns to develop more schemes to maintain his superior intelligence. Number 3. The High Evolutionary. Herbert Windham was a geneticist who, inspired by Mr. Sinister's early work, developed a genetic accelerator which let him evolve creatures to their next evolutionary steps. In a move that doesn't really track, the scientific community cast him out, saying that he had no right to tamper with the natural process of evolution. He was given the secret of how to unlock genetic codes by a disguised Inhuman, and he continued his experiments, managing to evolve his pet Dalmatian, but it was mistaken for a beast and shot by locals. This caused Herbert to seek out a place where he could continue his work in private. He used his vast personal fortune to create a secret base in Wundagore Mountain. He created his human-animal hybrids, the New Men, and taught them a code of chivalry in order to aid his quest to further human evolution. He also evolved himself in order to grant himself more intelligence and renamed himself the High Evolutionary. He is so intelligent that he managed to create a device that stole the Silver Surfer's cosmic powers. In a shocking turn of events, he kidnapped Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and revealed to them that they were not mutants, but were actually superpowered as a result of experiments he had secretly run on them when they were children. Number 2. Dr. Doom. Victor Von Doom was the child of Romani people living in Latveria. His mother was a sorceress, and after her and his father's passing, Victor began to study her books, teaching himself the dark arts. He also developed a keen scientific mind, which made him a legendary scientist and inventor at a very young age, and led to him being tracked down by the US military and offered further education in the States. It was here that he met Reed Richards, with whom he developed a lifelong rivalry. While in school, he developed his infamous Doom bots and also built a functional time machine. He was disfigured in an accident that resulted in his expulsion, and he went on to become the leader of some monks who helped him build his iconic armor. He became the main antagonist of the Fantastic Four and the dictator of the country of Latveria, causing lots of problems for the heroes of the Marvel Universe. Number 1. The Maker. Reed Richards is often called the smartest man alive in the Marvel Universe, and alongside the Fantastic Four is one of Earth's greatest heroes. His ego has often led to him making some questionable decisions, but he has been instrumental in saving Earth from several threats, including Galactus and the Skrull. Despite his heroics, we did witness a spectacular fall from grace for Reed in the Ultimate Comics universe, otherwise known as Earth 1910. The combined stress of the Fantastic Four breaking up and Sue Storm rejecting his marriage proposal caused Reed to snap and blow up his childhood home to fake his death, killing his family in the process. He went on to use aliens under his control to attack the heroes. He was eventually defeated and disfigured by the Human Torch and flung into the negative zone. Reed returned to Earth and took on the identity of the Maker and set out on a twisted quest to make the world perfect. He killed all the Asgardians in an attempt to understand Thor's power and used an antimatter attack to attack Washington, D.C., killing POTUS, his cabinet, and all of Congress. The Maker went on to do a lot of twisted stuff, fighting the heroes of his own Earth as well as the heroes of Earth 616, showing just how dangerous Reed Richards can be when his massive brain is turned against the heroes of the Marvel Universe.
Number 10. Spider-Man. Oddly enough, not a lot of people think of Spider-Man when they think Marvel superhero geniuses, but he really is just that. Peter is actually wicked smart. Oftentimes when people make the assumption that Peter's webs are organic, when that really is only true of some of the Spider-Man versions and is only something that has happened to Peter in the main continuity sporadically, it's because they forget just how smart he is. Yes, Peter is sweet, kind, and sometimes teeters on the edge of falling completely apart, but there's more to him than just that. He's not only got a kind heart, but he also has a great brain, hence how he was able to create his web shooters to begin with, and also hence his love of academics and science. Peter isn't just your average smarty either in the Marvel universe, no siree. He has been considered one of the great intellectual minds, rubbing elbows with the likes of Reed Richards, Iron Man, Black Panther, and Bruce Banner. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to head on over and check out our Marvel playlist for even more content like this. Number 9. Black Panther. One of the saddest things in terms of things we missed out on with Chadwick Boseman's live-action adaptation of Black Panther, T'Challa, who was taken from us far too soon, is that we missed out actually on the intellectual sides of that character. Now, while T'Challa is a brilliant tactician, a noble ruler, a determined athlete, resourceful and skillful as a warrior, he is actually also a genius in the comics. And I don't just mean diplomatically. He was one of the few who was smart enough to see the problems with the Illuminati when he was initially invited to join due to his vast intellect, influence, and power. Despite being invited, at first he refused, believing that a group of geniuses coming together to call the shots because they thought they knew better than everybody else was overall a really bad idea. And for the most part, he was kind of right about that one. Number 8. Shuri. In the MCU, at one point, Shuri was referred to as the smartest person on the planet. When she was just a teenager, Shuri was already one of Wakanda's greatest minds, becoming one of their lead scientists and working on designs for advancements and technological inventions that greatly improved the lives of her people, while also helping to ensure their secrecy and safety as a nation, shielding the truth of their power to protect them against the rest of the world. Number 7. Professor Hulk. What do you think of when you think of Hulk? A brute? Someone who smashes first and asks questions later? In fact, when the Hulk was first introduced in the 1960s, that was what we believed Bruce Banner's alternate identity to be. Hulk has always represented sort of a lack of control for Bruce, a bit of a monster who feels alienated and terrorized because of the way that he looks and acts. In the first issue of the Avengers from the 1960s, even his teammates do not question what they believe is the Hulk's terrorizing behavior. Granted, this ends up being a trick of Loki's, but still, it goes to show you that this type of behavior was and is expected of the Hulk. What was unexpected in the comics was when Marvel decided to create a version of the Hulk that actually merged two very different sides of that character, the intellect of Bruce Banner and the strength of the Hulk. This version also helps to balance out more than just either side, but creates a version of Banner and the Hulk that is more self-assured and confident, not shy, and helps Banner to deal with issues of self-loathing, often representing a more balanced and compassionate sense of self. A lot of people think of Bruce Banner as being a super genius, and while Bruce is really smart, I will give you that, and probably one of the most knowledgeable scientists around when it comes to gamma radiation, Amadeus Cho definitely gives him a run for his money. Declared as being one of the most intelligent people on the planet, Amadeus Cho for a time was also the Hulk after figuring out a way to basically transfer Banner's radiation, which would actually cure him from his Hulk affliction, which Banner for a while was actually really happy about. You see, Amadeus is also more emotionally balanced than Banner, so he also made for a less angry, albeit slightly less powerful as such, Hulk. Number 5. Iron Man. Recently, Iron Man help to rebuild a Celestial. If that doesn't make him worthy to earn his spot on this list, I do not know what does. Known for being a genius inventor who understands robotics and machines better than probably almost anyone else on the face of the planet, Tony Stark is a super genius. Generally, if you want something built, especially if it's mechanical, he is the guy you gotta go to. Number 4. Valeria Richards. I'm a little tired of Valeria getting snubbed in the comics. For those who are unfamiliar, Valeria is the younger sister of Franklin Richards, who initially was kind of his older sister. It's timey-wimey and a bit complicated when it comes to these siblings' history and age difference, but currently Valeria is now the younger of the two, so that's where we're at right now. While Franklin was initially believed to be a mutant possessing reality warping powers, later revealed to be just a superhuman with reality warping powers which were going wonky and slipping away, Valeria is literally just a human. But while she doesn't exactly have superpowers per se, she does possess super smarts. Super smarts that are believed to have the potential to rival even her father, Mr. Fantastic's genius, later in her life. In fact, she's even occasionally been implied to be on a similar level to her dad. And when it came to the life rafts that Reed created for people to take refuge in during the incursions, it was actually kind of Valeria's prompt that sparked the idea for Reed to even build those, when Valeria suggested that beating the incursions might not be a good or even possible solution to the problem of mass multiversal destruction, which was what the incursions were causing at the time. Number 3. Ant-Man. Hank Pym might not be held quite so high in regard in comparison to some other superheroes. He has struggled in his vigilante career. He created Ultron, had to deal with mental illness, realizing that he was actually probably bipolar, severe marital issues, and much more. But at the same time, some of the most brilliant folks do tend to have some of the greatest struggles. And for Ant-Man, more than maybe anyone else on this list perhaps, that is very much true. Whatever your opinion of Hank as a character or hero though, you have to acknowledge his brilliance and his genius. I think the thing that impresses me the most about him is that he's not often confined to a specific scientific field. Hank kind of spreads himself out a little bit more in that regard. Well known for his Pym particles, which can be used to change a person's size, making them as small as a molecule or as big as a skyscraper, Hank also happened to be a specialist in multiple fields, including physics, specifically subatomic physics, programming, AI, robotics, entomology, cybernetics, robotics, and more. Number 2. Moon Girl. It isn't always easy being super smart. Moon Girl is an interesting superhero who also comes with her very own dinosaur pal, Devil Dinosaur. Not only is little Lunella Lafayette brilliant, but she can also swap consciousnesses with Devil Dinosaur, an oddly specific but super powerful ability. Moon Girl is part of the Inhuman lineage and gained her abilities after undergoing Terrigenesis. Aside from that, she is also a super genius and, despite her young age, is likely one of the most brilliant and gifted minds in the Marvel Universe. Being a super genius from a young age, she's also often identified as a kind of oddball her entire life, something I think a lot of us can relate to. In fact, she was super nervous about undergoing Terrigenesis because of this. Although at this point she has embraced her weirdness, she was worried that this would actually just be another thing that would make her stand out more at the time and turn her into even more of a freak than she already was. Aw, Lunella. Number 1. Mr. Fantastic. Mr. Fantastic is probably considered to be the smartest superhero we currently have in all of the Marvel multiverse. Oftentimes when somebody has a puzzle that they need to be solved, they come to Mr. Fantastic, hoping he can help them figure it out, especially if it's something in the realm of science. Mr. Fantastic is often the one left to try and solve some of the world's greatest problems and mysteries, and for the most part, he's actually got a pretty good track record of actually solving those things. When it came time to rebuild the multiverse after Doom had taken it over during the 2015 Secret Wars, Reed was the one who set out to rebuild everything, tweaking things here and there to improve them. Granted, he did have help from the Beyonder, his family, and especially his, at the time, reality warping son Franklin, but even Doom ended up agreeing that Reed could actually do a better job at remaking the multiverse than he himself ever could.
And it's 10, Oliver Queen. While Oliver Queen may not be the smartest superhero ever, I mean, he really shouldn't be number 10, but he has had his moments and he is smarter than he looks. He was smart enough to survive on an island for 5 years, something that I'm sure I wouldn't be able to do, and one of my favorite moments actually comes from Arrow Season 1, where Oliver gets arrested, but reveals that getting arrested was part of his plan, since the Vigilante shows up only a few days after Oliver comes back to Starling City, and his first appearance was actually saving Oliver. He knew it was going to be suspicious. He knew that someone would work it out, so he intentionally got caught finding the arrow suit by the police, and then proceeded to recruit John Diggle so that he could wear the suit when Oliver was in custody so that he would be cleared of all charges. A lot of good it did him when Roz ended up revealing his identity to Captain Lance, but it cleared him for at least 2 years, and it would have cleared him for more. It was even used as a debate point in Oliver's trial style about being the Green Arrow in season 6, which honestly shouldn't have happened because they just photoshopped his face onto a thing. And at 9, Lex Luthor. Lex is indeed a supervillain in the main continuity, however in the Injustice universe, unlike other versions of himself, he was a law-abiding citizen and a close friend of both Superman and Lois Lane. When Clark suffered his first death at the hands of Doomsday, Luthor, fearing a world without its Man of Steel, created a project that would attempt to clone the Kryptonian together with his own DNA. Lex has a genius-level intellect, which commonly refers to people who have an IQ or intelligence quotient of over 140. So if your IQ is 140 or more, you're a thinking genius. And since, like almost every DC comic series, this version of Lex Luthor was never involved in criminal activities and doesn't carry any homicidal tendencies. And I think that this puts this Lex Luthor on a higher intelligence scale than the rest, because doing criminal shit is bad. Especially since he was able to work undercover for the regime without Superman getting a scent of the double agent aspect until Luthor reveals that he's a double agent. Plus, this is one of the only versions of Lex that is a good guy, and this is a list about heroes, so that helps with this placement on this list as well. And at 8, Martin Stein. Martin Stein is one half of the Firestorm Matrix, but also one of the most brilliant minds in the DC universe. Before committing himself to the field of atomic research, Stein was a physics professor at Hudson University. Stein eventually came to develop the layout for the Hudson Nuclear Power Plant, the country's first completely safe atomic testing center. And while in the comics Ronnie Raymond is the other half of Firestorm, in the Arrowverse, the only one who remains constant in the Firestorm Matrix is Stein, showing how important he is to Firestorm, since the athletic half was Ronnie and then later Jackson. However, while on TV, Firestorm got their powers from the particle accelerator. In the comics, the Coalition had wired several pounds worth of TNT to explode inside the reactor that Stein helped design. Ronnie was trying to save Stein by pulling him out of the building, and they were nearly out the front door when the TNT exploded. Both men were consumed by the brilliant burst of radiation, and the excess power had fused Ronnie Raymond and Martin Stein into a single composite being. Firestorm. And at 7, Batman. Like, I'm sure you all expected to see Batman higher on this list, probably even at number 1. However, honestly, I don't think Batman's that smart. And I continue my series of lists where I put him at not number 1 to rip on him as much as I can, to the dismay of everyone else, because I like to stir the pot. And while Batman may be a good detective, that doesn't mean that he's smart per se. That's really just a set of logic puzzles. He can think logically. And a man who has a whole set of documents about how to destroy every member of the Justice League, just ripe for the taking by the League of Assassins or any villain that really wants it, can't really be considered all that intelligent in my personal opinion. I can think logically, and with the proper training you can be a detective without needing a bat suit or mastery of plenty of martial arts. Batman is smart, but he's certainly nowhere near the smartest in the DC universe. Okay, I don't care what you think. Unless we're talking like Mobius chair Batman, in which case he is, but that's because of the Mobius chair, not because of Batman. And at 6, Ray Palmer. Ray Palmer is the Atom, the Mighty Might, a superhero with the ability to shrink to incredible sizes while retaining his full mass, making him a formidable combatant. Ray Palmer is a hard-working, dedicated man. In fact, dedicated is hardly the word for it. Driven is a little closer to the truth. Once Ray starts working on a problem or a puzzle, there is absolutely no stopping him. Aside from his crime-fighting career, he is also one of the world's top scientific minds, given his background as a brilliant physicist. He is also capable of shrinking to subatomic sizes and explores the universe on a frontier unknown to man, which only helps this. He also created the Atom suit that allows him to do this, having it be tech instead of a superpower also puts him on like the same level with the likes of Hank Pym and Tony Stark, some of the smartest characters in the Marvel universe. I think it's safe to say that Ray would also hold that kind of spot in the DC universe, or at least he's up there, given that he's only number 6. Halfway through into number 5, Ted Kord. Ted Kord was the second Blue Beetle, rivaling Batman's inventive mind. Ted was the creator of many inventions and crime-fighting technologies, like his solar-powered bug vehicle, BB gun, and much more. He also ran a company, Kord Industries, which produced hundreds of new technologies. He has small bug-shaped flying surveillance drones used for spying or for hazardous areas like radiation zones called baby bugs. Kord's Blue Beetle costume includes a special locking mechanism for his mask that engages or disengages when he touches it with a special microchip in the fingertip of his glove. Thus, any attempt to unmask him against his will without knowing of that mechanism would require forcefully cutting or tearing the mask apart. He had the bug, which was a multi-purpose 80% solar powered powered beetle-shaped car of sorts, capable of operating in air and water, and it had a built-in mobile lab, blasters, magnetic manipulators, grasping claws, and defense shields. The bug also contained a radiation suit similar to his standard suit that he could swap out of. Guy Gardner also noted that, quote, he was smarter than bats, although nobody ever noticed. And at 4, Martian Manhunter. The Martian Manhunter possesses highly advanced reasoning and logic capabilities and uses them to great effect. Desborough even once claimed that Ted Kord's mind, his IQ of 192, was only second to that of John Jones. The Martian Manhunter's particular astute reasoning capabilities and long-term association with Earth's global population gives him an edge when dealing with humans and diverse governments, cultures, and religions. As a result, in the northern hemisphere of Earth, the Manhunter is one of many costumed adventurers battling against entropy, yet in the southern hemisphere, he is even more well known than Superman. In addition to this, the Martian Manhunter is the most powerful telepath on the planet, and is one of the strongest telepathic beings in the universe, which some also consider to be due to his intellect, or something that adds to his intellect since he's able to control the minds of others. He is able to read the mind of any human with no difficulties, and the only minds that can cause him trouble are those who are insane, so he can't read my mind. He can even read the subconscious mind as well. He is able to read minds over great distances, and has been known to scan the mind of every person on Earth within a matter of moments. I wish he was like a therapist so he could just tell me what my subconscious wants instead of me trying to figure it out on my own, because that would be really useful. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Mr. Terrific. Michael Holt is the 3rd smartest man in the world, a brilliant inventor, and the 2nd superhero to call himself Mr. Terrific. At a young age, Michael Holt showed remarkable intelligence, reading and assimilating the works of Bohr, Einstein, Planck, and Feynman, the pantheon of theoretical physicists, at the age of 6. He studied advanced science, space, and time, while other children struggled through Sesame Street. Holt displayed, as he called it, a natural aptitude for having natural aptitudes, easily picking up and retaining complex skills and abilities that other men spent their entire lives perfecting. Before he began his career as a superhero, he already possessed 14 PhDs, 2 in engineering and physics, and then some assorted doctorates and master's degrees in law, psychology, chemistry, political science, mathematics. He was a self-made multimillionaire with a high-tech firm called Cyberware that he later renamed to Holt Holdings Inc., and a gold medal winning Olympic decathlete. This guy is literally the whole package, and I'm a YouTuber that's talking about him. That'll make you rethink your life real quick, trust me. Penultimately, in at number 2, Brainiac 5. Born on the super intelligent planet Kolu, Brainiac 5 is a 12th level intellect and considered a genius even by their standards. This makes him an incredible scientist, inventor, and strategist in combat. His ancestor is the supervillain Brainiac, but he takes this name to redeem his family's lineage. His longest romantic partners have been Supergirl, Andromeda, and Dreamgirl, so this man knows what's up. And if you're confused about the whole 12th level intellect thing, we as a 21st century society are considered to have a 9th level intellect. Or as Brainiac's post-crisis version explains, he can process the sort of knowledge over 490 octodectillion beings could, which is absolutely monstrous. That's about 490 with another 59 zeros after it of people's worth of human brain power that Brainiac 5 uses on a regular basis. So that just goes to show you how smart he is. But that seems like it's kind of cheating given that he's from the 30th century, so like 9 centuries from now. So let's just put him at number 2 and put a human, or at least a metahuman, at number 1 to kind of give like the human race at least part of a chance at coming out on top here, because I think we all know it ain't really gonna happen otherwise. And finally, in at number 1, The Flash. Now I know most of you expected to see Batman at number 1, and you're incredibly furious at me for talking about The Flash for the number 1 spot, but hear me out, okay? While he may take some time to figure out a solution, he can take all the time he wants and still have it be made in a fraction of a second to literally the rest of the world. Plus, in the Flash TV series, there was a time after rebuilding the Speed Force that Barry had speed thinking. This resulted in him being very calculated, even more intelligent than the Thinker, and he could predict where a ball that Cisco made that was designed to bounce in unpredictable directions, that's a quote from Cisco, called the quantum ball, he was able to predict where it would end up without looking at it before Cisco even threw the ball. Put his hand here, and then Cisco threw the ball, and he wasn't looking at it, and it landed in his hand. He also called out everything the ball would bounce on, and told Cisco and Allegra to duck at the perfect time. So yeah, the Flash in my opinion is the smartest DC superhero, which means that he's number 1 on this list, because it's my list, and I can do what I want, damn it.
Coming in at number 10, we've got a bit of an honorable mention with the iconic Thanos. That's right, while he's best known as being a powerful cosmic warlord, Thanos has occasionally fought on the side of good during the Marvel Universe's long history, and contrary to appearances, he actually might be one of the smarter beings in the entire galaxy. Considered a genius even by the standards of the incredibly advanced Eternals, Thanos' intellect is the only reason he's been able to come up with so many universe-spanning plans over the years, and has led to his ability to teleport, fly, and technically even led to the infamous Thanos copter. And while he more often fights the Avengers than not, he's still had to be consulted a few times by them when it comes to cosmic threats that outweigh even the power of Thanos. Coming in at number 9, we have Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. Peter may be best known for spinning webs of any size and catching thieves just like flies, but one of his greatest superpowers might just be his mind. Even before being bitten by a radioactive spider, Peter Parker was a high school genius, and is the mastermind behind all of his own technology such as spider bots, spider trackers, and even the web fluid and canisters that allow him to swing around New York. While he might often be overlooked by the rest of the genius-level Avengers, we all know that Spider-Man is an incredibly brilliant hero for the people of Manhattan. Coming in at number 8, we have Henry McCoy, aka Beast. Considered one of the foremost experts on mutants, a position that is helped by his own incredibly blue and fuzzy mutation, Henry McCoy could be considered the brains of the operation known as the X-Men. While perfectly capable of defending himself and becoming a vicious fighter whenever he needs to, Beast prefers to live life as peacefully as possible, much preferring to focus on his science and mutant politics rather than engage in direct combat. And as mutant kind continues to forge its own future with the island of Krakoa, Beast's genius will be much needed in the mutant-filled years to come. Coming in at number 7, we have Amadeus Cho. More well known as the totally awesome Hulk, Amadeus was actually incredibly noteworthy in the Marvel Universe years before he ever got infected with gamma radiation, as he was born with super genius intellect and his brain essentially acting like an incredible supercomputer, capable of performing multiple complex calculations at the same time without ever appearing overwhelmed. Because of the hyperspeed of his own brain, Amadeus is also incredibly fast at learning, a skill that came in handy once he was the Earth's primary Hulk for a time and had to learn how to control his new gamma form fast. Coming in at number 6, we have Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man. As one of the founding members of the Avengers due to the use of his size-changing technology known as Pym particles, Hank has long been seen publicly as one of the world's most impressive scientists. However, Hank's intellect hasn't just been used for size-changing technology, as he's also the mastermind behind the creation of the evil artificial intelligence known as Ultron. And while Ultron is one of the most terrifying villains in the Marvel Universe that the rest of the Avengers definitely wish Hank hadn't been smart enough to make, the fact that he was able to create an entirely new intelligence means that Hank is perhaps a little bit too smart for his own good. Coming in at number 5, we have Bruce Banner, aka the Incredible Hulk. Bruce Banner's scientific cred and reputation might have been tainted just a little bit by all the destruction caused by his own transformation into the Hulk, but at the end of the day, he's still an incredibly talented and genius-level scientist. Knowing more about gamma radiation than nearly anyone else on the planet, given his own incredibly up-close experiences with the substance, Bruce Banner got his PhD in nuclear physics with the intent of helping as many people as possible, only working with the United States Defense Department because no one else was hiring at the time. Nevertheless, Bruce still tries to use his scientific mind to help people even to this day, even if that help is by further trying to understand the many mysteries surrounding the Incredible Hulk. Coming in at number 4, we have the one and only Tony Stark. That's right, it turns out that the man who built a high-tech suit of armor in a cave with a box of scraps is a pretty smart guy. Graduating from MIT at the age of 17, Tony is an Avenger without any actual superpowers or enhancements. He's just an incredibly smart dude in a suit of armor, and even more importantly, is capable of using that intelligence in surprising and unorthodox ways, often capable of outwitting his opponents both in the moment and with literal years of advanced planning, given Tony's passion for futurism. Tony is said to be so smart that he claims to already know how most conversations are going to go before he's even had them, meaning that if you surprise Iron Man, you might just be able to surprise anyone. Coming in at number 3, we have Lunella Lafayette, aka Moon Girl. A young inhuman superhero with the ability to swap minds with the gigantic devil dinosaur whenever she feels a particularly strong emotion, Lunella is also one of the smartest human beings in the entire Marvel universe, and if it wasn't for the top spot on this list, would definitely be the youngest. Capable of solving a puzzle box that even its creator, Bruce Banner, was unable to, Lunella is already an accomplished computer hacker, engineer, and inventor at the age of 9, programming algorithms that even briefly confused Tony Stark. And with all of this mental power at such a young age, who knows just how smart Lunella Lafayette will become in the future. Coming in at number 2, we have Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic. The leader of the Fantastic Four and one of the very first superheroes in the Marvel Universe, Reed Richards has always been a complete genius. Heck, by the time he turned 18, he'd already earned 4 scientific degrees from multiple highly respected universities. Reed's intelligence would only become more important as the Fantastic Four grew in fame and had to deal with larger and larger threats, with the team often having to rely on Reed's inventions to help save the day or strengthen their own powers. In recent years, Reed has even helped his reality-changing son Franklin design new universes for the multiverse, and often collaborates with his own multiversal Council of Reeds to solve problems too big for just his brain alone to handle. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the one person who can outthink Reed Richards, and it just so happens to be his daughter, Valeria Richards. Conceived by Reed and his wife Sue Storm during an adventure within the Negative Zone, this led to unexpected consequences for both the baby and her mother, with bursts of cosmic radiation endangering everyone nearby. The only one who was able to safely deliver the child wound up ironically being Victor Von Doom, the archenemy of her father, and the one that gave her the name of Valeria after his own lost love. Kind of an awkward move there, Doom. Valeria has a greatly increased intelligence due to the cosmic radiation her parents endured, and it's already claimed that she's surpassed her own father's intellect, and has to hide her true level of intelligence to prevent her from becoming a target to cosmic supervillains. And considering Valeria is this smart while still just being a kid, who knows how powerful Valeria Richards will grow up to become.